So what's going on, everybody?
How's it going, everyone?
Today is another day.
It's another day, and unfortunately, our kind of co-host Dave is sick today, so he was not here,
Yeah.
and so we are trucking on without him. But we hope that he and his family are
Everybody's got the ick lately.
better quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ick's around, but it's okay.
It's a weird ick.
I don't mind when people are like, "Hey, I'm not going to be there," and I'm like, "Why the ick?" Oh, that's not what
Yeah.
they say, but that's basically what they're
Right.
saying.
Because I'm not feeling the greatest, and so had this illness, and it's like, okay, please,
Yes,
stay
I do
home.
not. I don't
want to
need any
be
share.
sick. I don't like sharing that way.
No.
So, today,
Today I had an idea.
yeah,
So I want to talk kind of about, part of the why of why we evangelize. I had this really cool thing kind of get shown to me by God, and I was like, "Man, this is awesome!" And so I'm eager to share it, and just figure we can talk about some of the imagery there. Because obviously, most of the time when we talk about the why, we talk about the Great Commission from Matthew, and therefore go and make disciples, and yes, that's a large part of it. But to understand the heart of God a little bit on when it comes to how He sees things, I think I got a preview of that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was getting ready for discipleship group tonight, and was reading a book called Growing Up, and actually I was listening to it on audio, and I actually got a whole lot out of listening to the audio versus reading. I'm a slow reader, but the audio, I was able to be like, well, what about this, and it didn't talk back to me, but it actually got my brain working, right? And we were they were talking about the difference between evangelism and discipleship, and it's like a two-part thing where it's evangelism is the first part, discipleship is the second part.
yeah,
Evangelism is basically the bringing people in the door, getting people to where they understand who Jesus is,
Sowing
or
seeds.
have the opportunity for the Holy Spirit to show up, to reveal themselves. And then discipleship is everything after that, right? It's everything after that. And talking about how a lot of times we drop the ball as churches in the second part of that, but maybe at the end of today we can talk a little bit about that transition period.
Sure.
And then next week maybe talk about discipleship.
yeah,
Sounds like it would flow together.
yeah, that'd be cool.
So, all right, cool.
We have our heading.
We have our heading. You guys are with us, hopefully, still. And, so thanks for tuning in, and welcome to the Truth Response.
We seek clarity in chaos.
All right, I'll pray.
Okay.
Father God, I just want to thank you for today. Thank you for just all that you've done for us and the opportunities that you present us, God. The fact that we get to walk life with you beside us, you knowing where we're headed, God, and you there to correct our paths and to see to it that we make it safely back on the narrow road, God. And I thank you for the opportunities that you give us to share the gospel with people, whether that is in word or deed, God. I thank you for those opportunities to be that fifth gospel, as I heard it said once, and that somebody may never read about it, but God, hopefully we can be that light to them, that you're shining through us, planting seeds. And God, I pray that the conversation today is fruitful and insightful and glorifying to you, God. It's in your precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, so I have a story for you. The other day, I had to fly up the coast, and I'm not a big flyer. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I love flying.
I'm not really a flyer. I get really nervous. I don't really like the idea of my feet leaving the ground, you know? So basically, if I'm on an airplane, I'm praying pretty much at least the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm praying for safe takeoff, safe passage, safe landing, all of it. And but that being said, you know, I do, however, like looking out the window once you're up there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really a fan of watching the ground leave me or the ground coming up to me. But once you're up there, I really enjoy. It's like, you know, kind of like Google Maps Live. You know, you know what I mean? It's awesome. And so, and my wife is always impressed because like I can look down and point out what everything is. Especially if I'm at least a little familiar with the area. I'm like, well, that's this, and this is that road and that road. She's like, I don't even know how you do that. And I'm like, well, it's just because I see it all. With that being said, so the other night I flew out, and when we took off, it was dark. We get up into the clouds, and then after a little bit of going, I guess the clouds cleared enough to where you could see. And for anyone that's ever flown, especially at night, when you look out the window and you see all the different places people live, you'll notice that like it's actually kind of beautiful in a way because around the cities, around the areas that people live, you know, are lit up at night, right? And you know, the bigger the city, the more bright it is, and the smaller this, you know. And I'm looking at this, and I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." But God, in that moment, I guess accepted my invitation to ride with me that night, because as I'm staring out at all these little cities and looking at the big cities and the small cities and how they all just kind of shine in the darkness, he's like, you see that? He's like, that's what I see when it comes to what it looks like to look at churches. So he's like, imagine that each one of those areas is what it looks like to look down at a church area. You know, he said, you know, we are the light of the world. He's like, that's what it looks like to have the light, my light shining around these areas. And that was wild to think about. But he said, but see, even amongst the brightness, there's darkness. And it only goes so far. And I found myself incredibly sad at how much darkness there was compared to the lit areas, you know, and in the different concentrations. And sometimes it spreads out, but it was kind of wild to see. And I just kind of felt really depressed because I realized that, like, of all the people, the number that are okay, that are going to be saved, the ones that are reflecting God's light is not as big, you know? Mm-hmm. And it was alarming to sit there and look at. And then I saw these areas where there was just like, it seemed like there was no light at all, right? And I was just kind of like, man, what about those areas? But then it was weird because I looked at my, you know, I can look at the in-flight map to see where we're at. And I noticed that some of the areas we were flying over are actually farmland. And God goes, yeah, some of this big black spots, they're waiting for seeds. That's the area, you know? And so to me, it was like, man, that's so big, you know? God has the heart to get into the darkness and light it up, to really light it up. And, you know, how can we bring our light into that? And I think that's evangelism 101, is walking into those dark spaces and bringing light to it, you know? But to see it from like a different perspective where God was like, look, this is what it looks like to me when, you know, yeah, it's beautiful to see the churches. It's beautiful to see when a group of believers is together and encouraging one another. But it doesn't take long till you see darkness again. And I was like, man, it was just, it affected me in a real way as I'm flying, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I will say it took my mind off the fact that I was flying. Took it on to something a lot bigger than myself. But I just kind of wanted to talk about it. I mean, that's just it's an amazing visual. And for those who are visual people, you could probably stay right with me just listening to this. And if you're not a visual person, I would invite you to maybe try to Google some images of what it looks like overhead at night on these cities. And so you can kind of get an understanding of what I'm talking about. Because, yeah, I mean, when you have a church community that's thriving, you know, and you're making a difference, light starts to shine brighter and brighter. But, you know, how can we move that further out? How can we get into those areas where there isn't any light?
Yeah. Something I think would be a good starting point, bouncing off of that story.
Yeah.
You were talking about how, you know, there's different amounts of light in different areas, right?
Yeah.
And that could equate to different amounts of light in each church.
Yeah.
And how some churches have less light.
Yeah.
Which is like not necessarily number of people, but number of people who are shining light, right?
Yeah.
So let's start there. Let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe some of the reason why I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I had a dream not long ago, a couple of years ago, where, you know, God told me that the churches are full, but the temples are empty, and that very much makes me think of that dream and that situation, and that was just a small part of the dream, but you know, it fits in with what we're talking about. And what is evangelism? Let's start there. What is evangelism?
I always like to think, I simplify it to planting seeds, right? We're trying
planting
to
seeds of what?
Planting seeds.
Christian evangelism. Let's go there.
I'm trying to plant seeds of Jesus.
Okay.
I'm trying to basically plant the seed in someone's mind that Jesus is who they need to look to for their hope for their salvation, that he loves them. They're not alone. There's lots of different seeds. As many seeds as there are actually plants on the earth, there's probably that many seeds of evangelism and different reasons behind it, but they all are Jesus seeds.
Well, and I think it would be probably safe to say that, like, evangelism encompasses the planting of seeds, the watering of seeds, and the harvesting of seeds. I mean, to all that end, right? Like, till the seed is ready to be harvested, the plant is ready to be harvested. Like, I would say that's evangelism, period. And I would say harvested is like, you know, being grafted into the vine, like being a believer, becoming a follower of Jesus, is where evangelism of that person to that person stops. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I mean, to a degree, we each have different parts to play, and we don't always get to do the whole gambit.
No,
you know?
Absolutely. But I'm saying, like, at what point does that person not receive evangelism any longer?
Well, I mean, to the point where they now know and they have to make the decision.
Right.
Us telling is the evangelism. Us showing.
Right.
I mean, that's what we do, is we basically show people Jesus. You know, we're not trying to show them ourselves. That would be terrible.
Sure.
You know, and to a degree, we're not technically trying to show them the church, our exact church, like our
right.
place of worship, although we want to make it open and welcoming and all those things. We're trying to show them Jesus. We're trying to give them the one thing that they need above all things. And so that's what we do, is in the different levels of, like, have you heard about Jesus? Do you understand why you need him? Have you actually accepted him? All the different kind of levels. You're right.
But once they've accepted him, they're no longer being evangelized to.
It's not really evangelism, then it's discipleship.
Right. Okay. So that runs the gambit, right? Like,
yeah, that's cultivating.
Sure.
We're trying to create first.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when I was looking at all those field areas, those farm areas, and there's quite a lot, which is interesting. But what came to mind is, you know, the harvest is ripe, but the workers are few. Like these areas need people to walk into them, you know, that are willing to finally shed some light. You know, there's people that have zero problem going about their day without any faith such things in it. and in some cases, the only time they hear anything about a God is when somebody uses a swear word, or it might happen to pop up in a movie or a TV show in some kind of reference form, and maybe even if things go really wrong, they might talk to God.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But in a lot of cases, they don't even understand who they're talking to.
Well, they're so angry a lot of times at who they think either God is or who we are and what we represent.
It's true.
I think a lot of times whenever they're standoffish, which is why I think I've taken a lot of times the route of like nerd's easy. Nerd's easy to get in with groups, right? All you gotta be is like, hey, yeah, I dress up too, and so, but whenever people find out that you work at a church, like when Lizzie and I were both working here, and we'd go into like a game store or whatever, they'd be like, are you allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, dude, like,
yeah.
Like.
I have a guy I went to high school with, who we graduated in the same class, and he actually moved down here before I did. He's a producer of a radio show over on the other side of the state. And the other day he posed a question online for people to respond to, and it was like, what profession do you have that people always makes people ask a lot of questions? And I just wrote pastor.
Yeah.
To which he's like, "Yep, that's a good one." Just a little like, and but it's true, man. You tell people like, if I go and say, "Hey, I'm a pastor," it's usually people have questions or they'll avoid you.
Yeah. Although more often than not, I think they have questions if you do it in the right manner. Like if you're just being you, most of the time they're gonna have questions.
Yeah. Or actually, there's a third thing that people do. They suddenly they try to put their Christianity at the forefront, right?
Oh,
they're like, might be something they don't talk about ever, but if they're talking to a pastor, they'll be like, oh yeah, I go to church, and oh yeah, God.
Spiritual comes out a lot.
It's really funny because sometimes you can tell like you're not very good at this.
Right.
You don't talk about this a lot, and that's fine. But
so,
I'm glad you're talking to me.
That's a good point to make for those who are believers, though. Like,
yeah,
if you're a believer and you catch yourself wanting to bring that to the forefront all the time, just start living it and stop talking about it. Like, not stop talking about how you are spiritual or how you are this or that or how you go to church or whatever. You either, show, right, by your actions, or shut up. That's where it's at. Like, I mean, because that's a good way. I mean, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but
put up or shut up.
Put up or shut up, right? My grandmother, who was a wonderful woman, a little crazy, a lot crazy, but she always used to say, "Shape up or ship out."
Yeah,
and she meant it to like you can either get your act together, or you can leave, and there's the door. Like, and she worked with the youth a lot to the point where like. At her funeral, like the pallbearers were all her youth group.
That's
like,
amazing.
Kids. And so like it was one of those like, look, I would hate for you to leave, but you're either going to shape up or you're out of here. Like she was very crazy. That's
There's something to that. Another thing that God pointed out to me when I was looking down at all these areas is that, sometimes it looks like there's just almost like one light by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that some lights are brighter than others.
Sure.
And I think that's so accurate. And he's shown me like some people's faith is more radiant, than others. It's almost contagious.
That makes me think of like, so there's a lot of things that could happen with that, right? Like, a lot of places we could go. One of which is like, just because you're on fire and just because your light is bright does not mean that you're attracting other people to become lights. And it also, off of that, right, we need to be looking for those people who seem to be shining bright alone and come alongside them.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's, and sometimes that's a hard call, man. Like that's a hard call to accept because that may make you uncomfortable. That may mean you have to quit your job.
Yeah.
And join somebody else in their endeavors or whatever. Like there's all kinds of crazy things that could mean. that God might call you to be doing that, but you need to be looking, right? You need to be looking for other people who are shining their light, because
And are you able
more
to be
lights-
seen?
yeah,
Like, if other believers come around, are they going to recognize you as a believer? Is there evidence? You know, it was interesting the other day. I had to get my my water. I had a water filtration system underneath my sink, and it cracked, and we have the water service came in to replace it, and that's all fine and dandy. But the guy that was in there servicing it, out of nowhere. Now, it's kind of out of nowhere, but he kind of looked up and goes, "What church you guys go to?" And it led to a really nice conversation, and and he was a believer, and so it was nice. But my wife, after he walked out, she's like, how did that conversation start? How did he know? I was like, well, think about it. First off, I answered the door wearing a shirt that says, "Jesus is my homeboy." I'm not even kidding. Okay, so there's one clue. But we have enough things around our house. There's evidence. If a believer knows for sure, but even a non-believer could look around and go, they got some Jesus stuff up. So there's that. There is evidence. Is there evidence that you're living out your faith? And maybe that's part of the brightness. Like, when people see you, do they see Jesus?
right. And it's not just a bumper sticker, because a bumper sticker can be on the car of somebody who
Flip somebody off or
Yeah.
cut them off.
Yeah,
I
right,
don't
so-
like the bumper stickers on the car, guys.
unless
We're not perfect yet.
you're living up to it. Like, I mean, it just, there's
Yeah.
one thing. Just remember that if you're going to put a bumper sticker on it,
You got to live
people
up to
are
it.
going to see it, and you got to
Yeah.
live up to it. The other day, we went in while my family was here to get some popcorn and snacks for a movie night that we were having with all the cousins and everything. So, and the nephews, my nephews, and my daughter, and the cashier. We were buying popcorn from Dollar Tree. So I don't know if you've had their popcorn. Their
No.
pre-popped popcorn, super good.
Is it?
It's really good popcorn.
Really?
Yeah, it's really good popcorn.
From Dollar
Tree.
Tree.
Dollar Tree. Yeah.
Okay.
$1.75 or something like that now. Whatever price Dollar Tree has gotten up to, which is stupid. But the cashier was like, "Hey man, did you know that there's a Bible verse on these?" And I was like, "I actually did." Cool. I'm glad you pointed it out. And then we got a little conversation going, and everybody was laughing. But it was really neat that, like, because I think there's quite a few things that actually Dollar Tree has that have like scripture references on them.
That's really cool.
But he used that opportunity to sneak in there, which is really awesome, and opened up a good conversation, opened up an opportunity for me
I
to,
love
hey,
that.
hey, do you have a church home? I mean, I assume you do, because you're
Pointing out Bible verses,
Bible
yeah.
verses everywhere. So, and he did, but it was just a cool opportunity.
I love that. I used to do that all the time. So when I worked in the auto industry, I'd have customers' cars pull in, and I would look. I was
Yeah.
so intentional. I'd look if you had a cross hanging from your rearview mirror, or Jesus fish, or
It's
name of your church.
It's you inviting.
At that point, you've now opened the door, and
Yep.
we are going to have a conversation. Even if it started with a casual, "Oh, I see that cross hanging from the mirror." I relished the opportunity to jump in on that. It was so much fun.
So all that to say, why are Christians so afraid to do the evangelism piece? Because, I mean, that's a big part. I mean, most people aren't excited to do it. Most people are intimidated by it.
I think people forget, the gift that we've been given. And I was thinking about this yesterday and the day before, and I thought to myself, I think so. And I looked at a sticker and I saw it. Have you seen these stickers lately? Salty and lit.
Yeah,
Salty and lit. All right.
they've been around a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. If you haven't. So yeah, salty and lit, because we're the light of the world and we
Right.
are the salt of the earth. And I started thinking about it. And it's like, we are the light of the world. We're out there to put out that light. But being the salt's actually the groundwork. And I think about that a lot, because, let's think about three things that salt does. Salt preserves things.
Yep.
Traditionally, it preserves meats. It preserves things. So salt preserves. Salt is used in healing. So salt preserves, salt heals, and then also it enhances. Right? So those are the three things. And it's kind of neat that we get to be the thing that preserves, what's good in this world. We get to be the thing that can help heal this world, at least to a degree, to keep things at bay. And also, we get to enhance life, to show people something better. And I think when you can start to embrace those attributes of being what it is to be salty for God, to be the salt of the earth, you know, and you look at it more of a privilege, maybe it'll help excite us a little bit to be both. Because, I mean, we're already, I've already talked about, you know, we have a light to shine, you know, but I think the salt is the boots on the ground. It's how we sow these things in.
Salt is a great example for both sides of the negative of this topic, because as much as like that, we need to do that, and those are the good points of salt, right? And that's the good points of sharing the gospel. For those who are overzealous and are the people that give us a reputation for being Bible thumpers or shoving Jesus down your throat, right? Salt also causes heart attacks. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, too much of a good thing's a bad thing. So just be mindful of that. Like, don't be so salty that people reject you, or it pushes people away, or reject Jesus because of you. Don't be salt that kills, you know, but rather just be a good chef. You know, get a pinch.
The right amount of
salt. Get a pinch.
Right amount.
But yeah, so don't be afraid of it though, and that's another reason why I think we need to be looking for the other lights that are shining, is because, like, you know, two is good. Two is better than one, right? When it comes to a lot of that stuff, and just loving people through life. So why are some reasons people are intimidated by it, though?
Well, I mean, ultimately, there's the, you know, rejection or opposition. I think those are the two big reasons, where it's like, you know, we live in a fear of missing out culture, and if we go in there and like, all right, guys, this is something cool I want to talk to you about, and it's Jesus, and people are like, yeah, I don't hang out with you anymore. It's like, well, I don't want to be that guy that gets left out because I want to talk about Jesus. And, you know, also, we're also afraid that, you know, we're not prepared enough. Think about it. You walk into a situation like, hey, man, I really love to talk about Jesus. Even, no matter how you bring it up, that might not be how you enter the conversation. It's just an example, okay? But, you know, Jesus gets brought up and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm a believer, or, oh, yeah, man, I love Jesus, or, yeah, I turned my life over, or whatever it is. And then somebody suddenly comes at you with some opposite information. And we sometimes don't feel equipped to hang with that conversation or argument. Or actually, sometimes we just call it a fight. I mean, because sometimes it feels like we just start a fight the second we talk about him. But, you know, and I get that. You know, it took me a long time to feel really okay with walking in a situation where somebody's like, let me pick holes in what you're saying. I'm like, you can try.
Yeah, I heard a very intelligent man, Frank Turek, say something one time, and he says it a lot, actually. But it's my favorite phrase that he says, and that is, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? Would you believe it? Because that tells a lot. Their answer tells a lot about who you're talking to, right? If they're like, when they come at you like that, I'm not saying you open a conversation with that, right? But like, if they're coming at you, that's a really quick way to find out, A, whether or not they really actually are curious and have these rebuttals, right? Which means that you can have a conversation, a discussion, whether heated or not. Or if they're just angry and they don't care. And if they're just angry and don't care, it's not worth your time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be, you know that you're going to be sowing seed on hard ground at that point.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you just love them the best way that you can, and you just let it go. You don't even try to fight back. But if they say yes to that question, right? That, yeah, absolutely. If it were true, I would become a Christian. Then you can be open to a conversation, and then you just think about whatever it is before you say anything, because you got the Holy Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's the one who's going to provide us with the right answers, the wrong answers in the moment, and you never know how your description might hit that person in a right way.
Yeah. And
So-
actually, it's a good opportunity to point out that it's okay to not have the exact answer you feel like you need. If somebody's like, well, what about this? And you don't know, it's okay. It really is.
Yeah, it
Okay.
totally
If you're afraid, first off, if it's a pride thing where you're afraid that they're going to think that they're right and somehow you're defeated, let's get over that right away. But it's okay to go, you know what? I don't know that, but I'd love to look into that. And I bet you if I talk to this person or I do a little study, I'd be able to give you a good answer for that. And you know what's the best thing about that is that puts you on a journey where your faith is going to get strengthened. So that's an amazing thing right there.
Yeah.
When it comes to opposition, one of the first people that opened I wouldn't say my first people, but someone that really articulated it well when it comes to the different opposition of sowing seeds. And I preached on the parable of the sower, I don't know, not that long ago, but I did it. And, but it was, I listened to Lee Strobel go over the parable of the sower. And Lee Strobel, of course, is an evangelist, wrote some amazing books. If you've never heard of him, fantastic books. Case for Christ, Case for a Creator, top 2 in my opinion by far. So good. Anyway, that being said, he said, the parable sower kind of shows up what it's going to be like to have opposition or difficulty when you're trying to evangelize to the world. You have, of course, the path, the rocky ground, the thorny ground, and the good soil. He says, good soil, easiest one, is someone that you go to talk to them and they're open to it and they start to, accept it, and then they want to start putting it in place, and then it starts to go into their heart and take good roots, and then it's a fruitful thing. I said, but there's 3 main objections. And he said, well, there's like the thorns. It's like a heart problem. It's an emotional problem, oftentimes where it's like, there's just something that they've been holding on to that they're not letting Jesus in because of. And it could be something because the world's such a difficult place, or bad things have happened, or they just don't understand how on an emotional basis, like these things go on, or something bad has happened to their life, or whatever it is. And that can be worked with. That can be, that can be a conversation, that can be a journey, but it can be overcome. Okay. The second, you got the rocky ground. The rocky ground.
Can we stop there for a second?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Like, that's a really interesting thought on that, because if you also think about what thorns or weeds or whatever do when it comes to other plants,
Yeah.
it's going to suck the nutrients that you need right out of you.
Yeah.
Like, that's so good. I never really thought about it that way before. That's I don't know, that heart problem thing, because like heart problem kills.
Yeah.
I think 99% of people who fall away from the faith. Like,
Yeah.
it's their unwillingness most of the time. Honestly, it's their unwillingness to realize that they've got a heart problem.
Yeah.
And when you can't diagnose that,
When you're
you
letting
can't
these
get rid
other
of the
things.
weeds, right?
Mhm.
Like, you can't get rid of the thorns, because I think that's something totally fixable. Like,
Yeah.
the thorny soil, that competition for the nutrients, because the world is pulling at you as well. I think that is an absolutely fixable thing, and at that rate, you're just not willing to open up. And I think most people that fall away, it's in that category.
I think I think it's pretty fair, but also, I mean, you're right. It's fixable, and there's some people that will refuse to be fixed. They're
Yeah.
gonna let the thorns choke them out,
I mean,
and then
that
there's some that are willing to do some pruning. They're gonna be doing some uprooting of some thorns in their life, and so
Jesus' favorite question: do you want to be healed?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. And so then the next level is the rocky ground. He's like, these are the people, it's like the head cases. He said, well, you didn't say head cases, but I did, but it's the logic, where there's just something that they have, that maybe it's a thing where they've had alternate teachings. Maybe it's scientific, maybe it's something in school, maybe it's another thought process that they've kind of accepted from other different religions or whatever it is. But there's some logic thing that is getting in the way. And so it's hard for them to entertain faith things, the true faith things. It's hard for them to really accept it because there's alternate things in their minds that, as soon as they hear something that's kind of good, they immediately go, oh, okay, but what about this? And so it's like in battle of the mind against this. And once again, he says this one also, with the right conversations, the right path, the right journeys, these can be overcome as well. You can get someone who's got some holdups, some barriers. You can try to help them get past that with understanding truth and such like that. And for an apologist like Lee Strobel or Jay Warner Wallace, Frank Turek, a lot of these guys, that's their life, is to go, okay, I get it. You're stuck on this. Let's have a conversation. I'd love to tell you about how you might be able to get around it. Not around it as in like avoid it, but get through it and
think about
something.
Think about the illustration, right?
Yeah.
Rocky soil. So a couple of things. First off, getting around it. It's great. I mean, you have to be able to find your way around the rocks, right? Because the rocks aren't going to go away, right? The rocks aren't going to go away. You just have to find a way to get deep so that your roots can actually get in deep.
Exactly.
Right? That's what rocky soil does. It stops the roots from growing in depth because they don't have an easy path, right?
Yeah.
So, but once those are there and they're deep, they understand where those stones are, right? They understand where those rocks are in that rocky soil.
It's a good time to point out that like doubts aren't bad. People, this is where a lot of people, they get stuck in the doubts, but doubts aren't a bad thing. If you let things that happen, the questions come in your mind, the doubts that maybe you experience or struggle with, if you're willing to take them to God and really learn, then once again, you can go deeper in your faith, and it can be an amazing thing for you. It's where that stone that was a doubt, it's not a problem anymore.
Doubts are good as long as you're exploring truth, right? Yeah. As long as you're willing to try to squish them and bring them to God, because otherwise, God tells us to ask without doubt, right? Yeah. So when you're asking Him for things like, you need to get to a point where you're asking with no doubt that He's going to give it to you. That's that faith of a mustard seed, even like. But you're right. Faith or doubt is okay as long as you're seeking truth and wisdom and God in the midst of all of the doubt. So,
and so then of course you have in the parable the seeds that fall on the path, and the birds come and snatch them up right away. He says these people are like people that it doesn't matter what you give them. He's like, they don't want it.
Right.
They refuse it, and that goes back to the question you asked, like, hey, if Christianity is true, would you accept it? Some people wouldn't.
Those are the no's.
For those people
definitely,
that
the people that say no to that are on that path.
Yeah. And, maybe that no could be something where like, no, because this happened to me, or no, because I don't get it. Okay, maybe they're in those other places. But if it's a no, I don't want anything to do with it. It's someone that doesn't want the accountability of a creator God. They don't want to live by anyone else's rules but their own. They don't want anything to do with this. And so it doesn't matter if God was like, hey, I'm right. Well, Jesus could come, but I'm Jesus, could perform wonders, could do all the things. And they'd be like, yeah, that's cool. I'm still going to go my way. Thanks.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the saddest parts of reading the book of Revelation is knowing that towards the end of tribulation period, there's going to be time where people know and they're still going to say no. And that's going to be wild. And that's the part that I have a hard time with. Not hard time with God. I just hate that part of human deprivation where there's going to be some hearts that are just like, no, I'm good.
Well, unfortunately, that is the thing that helps us see that it's true that there are just some people who won't accept it, and that when God allows them to die, and then ultimately they have to pay for that.
He's going to honor their decision.
It's justified because, even then, right? Even when the people in Revelation you're talking about, like, know that even then they reject at times. And so, like, some of them, even though they know, reject. Like, that just, that's just an example of then proof then that it's stuff that happens now too,
Yeah, so that's the hardest place, the chance of success in evangelizing to that kind of ground is very difficult. Would I say impossible? With God, anything is possible. But
oh, dude. So I just had a thought.
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So like we're talking about like anything's possible, right? Yeah.
Right.
Any of the soils can shift, I guess you could say, if you're not being cultivated. But the one thing that can get a seed from the path to any other soil is the breath of God. Right?
Blows it off the path.
Blows it right. I mean,
That's
seriously,
cool. I like that.
That's yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, of course, God can turn a hard path into good soil.
yeah.
So I mean, he
Enough
can do it all.
rain,
Oh yeah,
enough rain, man.
a little manure.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty funny in itself. But yeah, I mean,
Sometimes you got to take an earthquake to break up the ground and turn it rocky, right?
sometimes things has to be shaken up.
Yeah,
Sometimes crap has to fall.
yeah,
Or what? When you're up that creek, or when it hits the fan,
yeah, yeah.
spreads all over the place. All right.
So okay, so what does it say about God's character that He invites us into sharing the gospel with others? What is something like that? What does that say about His character?
Well, I mean, obviously, he shares that responsibility. He doesn't necessarily need us,
Sure,
but he loves
But
us.
that's what I'm asking. Like,
Yeah.
since He's sharing that with us, that that responsibility He's sharing with us, like, what's that say about His character? Because He doesn't need us, right?
He doesn't, but it's love. It's what it is. The fact that we get to participate. That when we get to eternity with him and he gets to go, hey, look what you did. That's love, that we get to celebrate in that together. Because he didn't even need to create us, really. So,
True.
I mean, it's all love. And the fact that we get to be part of it, that we get to wear his name, and you think about it. I want you to go back to those 12 disciples, in a time where the disciples would have had to kind of petition to follow someone. He said, "Nah, I choose you. You follow me."
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing privilege.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and the people he chose being those that were outcast, rejected, problematic even to some people. A tax collector, considered one of the biggest sinners and traitors. And he's like, hey, you follow me.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about, like, one of the big things is the fear that stops us from following. But I mean, what would you say that says about the person? Just what do you think that says about the person who is following? Like,
afraid to tell people about
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. People afraid of maybe what they might say or think or whatever.
Oh man, if you're trying to follow Jesus and you find yourself afraid to talk about him, then you're following him too far behind. You need to try to follow him a little closer, because he is our refuge and he is our strength. And his power is made great in our weakness, in our insecurities, in our inabilities. He chose Moses, who could barely speak. He chose drunkards. He chose murderers. And if he has said and given you the opportunity to speak, and you feel that fear, man, I get it. But God will be with you, and he will be loving you on you. And as we said, you don't want to go too salty to where you're trying to beat people, and you can't force people. You cannot force love. God doesn't force his love on us, and we're not to do that either. But you get the opportunity to do it. It's the fault of my life, and I speak from someone who refused for a long time to speak for God, because I thought of it as too great a burden. I thought of it as something that would put too much attention on me, and I didn't know how to live up to that until he guided me there, and now it's all I want to do. It is a privilege. He could choose anyone, and he could choose you. And so when those opportunities come, maybe the reaction won't be the best, but you get to do it for God. Don't be afraid of it. You never know how he's going to bless it. You never know the kind of seed you can plant, the impact you could possibly make. And you never know how blessed you might be by the Father because you are willing to do his will not yours.
Yeah, I would even take it a step further and say like it's not something for us to force on other people to believe, but it is something for us to enforce that you're supposed to evangelize. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're one of the biggest things you're called to do is evangelize, and
Yeah.
the
And
second is like it. It's
yeah, and
disciple.
evangelizing takes so many forms, and there's lots of different kind of parts of it. Number one, I mean, I've talked about this before, but realize that whether you like it or not, if you're following Christ, you're wearing a Christ uniform. You
Yeah.
represent him now. And so you got to represent him well. I mean, how we live our lives according to the gospel, how we live our lives according to following Jesus is a big deal. And we need to take that seriously. You can't be praising God on Sunday and then flipping people off in the parking lot. Does that happen? Yes. Do they deserve to be in church? Thank God they are, because that's where they need to be. However, we need to work to get ourselves in a place where the person we are on Sunday morning at church is the same person we are at Walmart, the same person we are at work, the same person we are at our kids' games, or in a stressful situation, or when someone flips us off in traffic. How do you respond? And I think the closer we follow Jesus, the closer that we start to understand the ways that we can be in those situations.
I think the closer we are to Jesus, the more our perspective changes.
Absolutely.
Because I think one of the problems is how we view people. As Christians, a lot of times that stops us from that, and one of those two contrasts is seeing them as lost people and seeing them as image bearers, right? Because we're all image bearers of God, and we're called to bring them in with love, and we're called to to talk with them, and just seeing them as sinners is definitely the wrong way to view them, and I think a lot of times we easily get caught up in that. I mean, it's like when I was in high school, people knew that I was a believer. It was not, there was no doubt in most people's minds. But that being said, people would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say something bad," like I didn't mean to cuss, I didn't mean to whatever, and it was like, "Yo, dude, I'm not going to enforce my rules on you, man. Like I'm not going to enforce my convictions on you." And so when that stuff comes up, like you got to love them through whatever their views are, And when you love them to that point, people start going, "Oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I see that there's something different inside of you than what I have." And I understand now why you're feeling that. So it's a huge win to see somebody say, "Oh, I get it." But if you're too afraid to speak up, if that person's called, that person's called. So I mean, God will bring those who He calls with or without you.
Yeah, it's
That's
weird.
not excuse to not do it, because then are you blatantly disobeying, thinking through it that way. But it also doesn't have to be anything hard or elaborate. You don't have to know how to explain multiple world theory and, explain away like the infinite universe theory. You don't have to know all that stuff, and you don't have to know like all the hard things. I mean, it's cool to know some of those things, and it's cool if that's the route you want to go with some of the learning and the training that you get to be in apologetics in that way. But I would say even apologetics is just a small tool. Well, it's a tool. I'm not gonna say it's a small tool. It's a tool in the tool belt of evangelism, right?
Yeah,
like it's
sure.
not the main thing.
No.
I would say.
No,
Even
but sometimes it's just, being willing in the moment.
yeah.
I think back, this is a true story, and I'm going to omit names, but so when I was in high school, there was a kid in my class that I was, I guess you could say, cool with, but I never, talked to him too much. And then one day he came to me and he started asking me about the Bible, and he started asking me about God. And it's funny because it was at the time where I was trying not to. Yet I remember trying to give him some answers to some things, even in my uncomfortableness of talking about it. And what's interesting about that is that you never know. I can't remember the questions and I can't remember the answers, but I remember that those conversations happened. And what's interesting about that is that that person went on and became a very avid believer, and then became a worship minister, and has since then written songs that have been sung in churches around the world praising God. And I feel privileged just to have spent that time with him, and I have no idea if those questions that he asked, the answers that I gave, helped in any way. But I hope that something good came out that helped him on that journey, because, man, you never know.
Yeah.
And that's so awesome. I think about the work he's done, and I'm so proud of him, first off. But, you know, he had that desire to know God. And sometimes you never know what being willing to just take a moment and answer a question could do. You could one day be part of a story that changes the world. You never know. I have no idea if that's the case for me. And I would, you know what, and if I mess that up, that's something I'll have to answer to one day. But I really am so proud of him, because, and the thing is that, you know, I didn't want to, but I did. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you just got to do it to the best you can, no matter what. Just be willing to try.
And even in your fear of like not knowing what to say, like there's been a ton of times where someone has come to me, not a believer, they've had a situation or whatever, and I don't know how to deal with the situation either. I've never been through X, Y, and Z. And as they talk and I listen, God just is like, say this. This is what they need to hear now. You know, insert this. Don't you remember this verse that, you know, this passage that you read? Like, and so like dig into the script. If you're worried to evangelize because you don't feel like you know enough, just start reading the Bible. And if you've been reading the Bible, you know enough. Like, if you understand that Jesus died for you and loves you and you bear his image, like, that's enough to disciple somebody. Like, maybe not to the greatest extent as the next person, maybe. Yeah. Maybe better than the other person. But that's enough to start discipling someone. So if you are in that place where you could disciple somebody, you can surely evangelize.
Yeah, and I want to point out that Scripture says to give a reason for the hope that we have. It doesn't say that you need to be a Bible scholar.
Right. It doesn't say you have to give an answer to everything, right? You don't have to answer for everything in Scripture.
But what is it? Have you ever thought about what is it that why you believe? Is it something you experienced in faith? Did God do something that one day you were like, you know what, I'm not turning my back on it? What has he done in your life? What are the anchors of your faith that keep you tied to Jesus? Those are the things to focus on. Somebody might ask a question that you don't have the answer on, and you can go, you know what, I don't know that, but this is what I do know. This is what I have experienced. And they may even scoff at it. They might even go, you know, that's not enough for me. That's fine, but it's enough for you. And you need to stand on your convictions.
Yeah, and when it comes to like giving your testimony, I think that's a part that people confuse and I think misunderstand and make something that it's not a lot of times. A testimony is not like I did all of these bad things, now I do good things. That's not necessarily a testimony. Testimony is where has God interacted with you in your life? That's your testimony, because the witness is about him.
No, right? That's what testimony is witness.
The witness is about him and what he's done in your life. And so it can be, I was doing these bad things and now I do these good things and he showed up in this way. But what people seem to miss is that their testimony is the thing that they can speak into when that person is in front of them in a unique way. So, for instance, you know, if somebody were struggling with, oh man, I burnt all these bridges in this church, and like I made this person upset. I hurt this person, and I'm now realizing it, and I want to fix all these things. Man, I can speak into that, and I can speak into the fact that God can take and rebuild bridges that you burned down, because God is bigger than the fire that you lit, right, to burn those bridges. And so, like, I would talk about that part of my life with that person at that moment, and that would be my testimony in that part.
Yeah.
I could talk about my struggle with pornography with somebody who was struggling with pornography, and that would be my testimony to that person in that moment, in that part. So honestly, like, we overcomplicate that so much that it has to be this, like, specific thing. I don't like anymore the concept of what's your elevator pitch, like, as far as your testimony in an elevator. Like, I don't like that anymore, because it's more than that. It's whatever it is in the moment, and it has to be mindful of the person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, it's just going to be out there, right? Whereas, like, if you're mindful of what the person is talking about, the person is going through, and what they're saying, and you're listening to them, like, you can tell the part of your testimony, which is your whole life, right? But you can tell the part of your testimony that they need to hear, and if you're listening and you're open to that, the Holy Spirit's going to move in that spot.
Yeah.
And then He's going to be like, okay, you've been through this.
Yeah.
You've been through that. Like, this is what you should say. And it's not necessarily audible, but, like, you start recalling those things, and you're like, oh, okay, I know what I need to say, and maybe not with that much confidence, but the more you do it, the more you'll be like, all right, God, I got you. Like, I understand what you're pointing me towards. And so,
Yeah. I mean, and you're right. It doesn't have to be complicated. And in the length of time can change depending on the person. I mean, it can be something where it's like, all right, I've got a lot to tell you. Or it could be something. I love how The Chosen does it, where they're like, I was one way, and then I was another, and the thing that happened in the middle was him. And just talk about that part, And it's like, well, I met Jesus, and He changed my life. And He changed my life this way, and I put my faith in Him, and He showed up, and I put my faith in Him, and it didn't go in vain, and one of the things I used to tell people, if I wanted to, and actually I still do, I can't say I used to, I still do, but when somebody's like, I feel like I want to give one statement that kind of sums it all up, I say this way, I say, here's what happened. God made Himself so real to me. The reality that He exists is so real to me that there was no turning back.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, because and that's great, because honestly, for me, it's hard to be like, oh, I was a murderer. I can't say that. I decided that I wanted to follow Jesus at a very young age, and so, like, I don't have this grand story of, like, this conversion and, the scales fell from my eyes, like what happened with Paul. And, like, I'm just saying, like, I don't have all that. But, man, my story between birth and now, there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that I can share with people, that I'm called to share with people. Like, the things that I have gone through, the things that I've done, good and bad. That stuff has to be shared. And so God presents the right people at the right times and the right moments for you to share those things. And so the trampled rose of your life doesn't go to waste, right? God takes that trampled rose and puts the petals in this beautiful jar and makes it a centerpiece that gets to shine for everybody.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, and every faith story is beautiful. It's funny you bring up, there are sometimes you hear somebody's testimony and it sounds so amazing. And it's wild to hear people, and I used to feel like this sometimes, like every once in a while I hear something that's so amazing, repentance story, amazing come to Jesus story. You're like, man, and you almost feel a little jealous, like, why wasn't my story as great is that? Why didn't I get to experience God like that?
I
It's like,
struggled with that a lot.
you know
when
why?
I was a kid.
Because you experienced the God way you did. And you know what's
Yeah.
amazing? If you hear that and you've already been a Christian, guess what? You got there first. The bigger thing is, okay, no matter what someone's testimony is, when you hear someone how they came to Jesus, it's a yay God. Because
Yeah.
that means that you're on the boat, man. You punched your ticket. We're all going to the same place now. We got to get excited. Stop comparing. Stop comparing. It's not about comparing. It's just being excited that they get to go too. And if you're there and you're hearing about someone, great. You've had your ticket punched for a long time. Now, the greater question is not, is your story as cool as there, or as wild, or as seem as powerful? The question is, since you've been there, what have you been doing with it?
Yeah. You know, I really like cake. And you know where you have cake? At parties.
I love parties.
And, you know, that in and of itself is enough reason to want to witness to people. Do you know what I mean? Because
There's gonna be cake.
there's gonna be cake, right? You don't get to have a party if you're the righteous person, right?
Yeah.
When God talks about, when Jesus talked about like leaving the 99 to find the one, there's that celebration for that one. There's not a celebration for the 99. But you know who gets to participate in the celebration? The 99.
You know who gets cake? The 99.
The 99, right? So just remember that you may be the righteous person,
Yeah.
you know. But man, the celebration that we get to have because the one person who is found and turns to Jesus is just so worth it. So worth anything that you might go through. I mean,
Yeah.
so,
I love the idea. It, to me, is just as simple as you made it.
yeah.
You know, I love hearing people's story about how they came to Jesus. I love hearing how they accepted him and how, you know, but basically you're telling me how you made it. And I'm
Yeah.
so excited about it. And I never want to stop hearing those stories. And maybe in heaven we'll just be sharing them forever. I don't know. But it's going to be so good. And, you know, to be so excited. And everybody that walks through that church door, I just want to, and everybody that you have come in contact with, all those dark places, those big open spaces, it's an opportunity to help someone else make it, to help someone else have a cool story, a testimony, something that they get to go, this is how I made it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. My final thought, going back to what God showed me, you know, you are a light in the darkness. And first off, let your light shine bright. Brighten it up as best you can so that when people see you, all they see is Jesus shining on you and through you. But spread that light out, man. That's what you need to do.
That's good. Final thoughts from me is just, you know, look for those people who are trying to do it and are doing it alone, and stand beside them, whatever the hard cost that might be for you. You know, obviously pray about it, and I'm not saying jump off a cliff without God, you know, leading you to do it, but metaphorically speaking, I don't want anybody thinking that, you know, I'm telling you to jump off a cliff and blame God for it. But seriously, like, the cost of following God is everything. And sometimes that's in comfort. And sometimes that's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So just be willing to look out for that person who might be standing on an island by themselves, just looking for someone to come along beside them.
Yep.
Challenge to you guys. First off, join our Patreon. We would love for you guys to be able to get some of the extra perks that we're going to be throwing at you guys.
But be part of the mission.
Be part of it, yeah. If you guys really love what we're doing, you know, come and help us out. Come help support us. None of us currently take a paycheck for it. The money is going to enhance the podcast and make it better, whether that's software or physical or equipment, yeah. Or being able to do events like our 250th, whatever that looks like. We are, we need you guys to help with that. So if you guys aren't Patreon members, and you talk with God about whether or not it's for you, but because I'm not going to ask you to give if you can't afford it either. But if you're not a Patreon member, check it out. I mean, you can be a free member.
Keeps you up to date.
Yeah, it allows you to comment on the Patreon. It allows you to have a easy place to find the videos each week. So there's that. But if you can financially help us out, it comes with some extra perks too, like devotional, 5-day devotional,
subscriber
perks. It comes with maybe a music release, newsletter, background for your phone or your tablet, like. So just depends on the level. Also, top tier subscribers, which is $20 a month, gets a T-shirt after 3 months. I think the $10 tier gets stickers and magnets every couple of months, so that's fun. So yeah, check it out. We'd love to have you join us in taking this thing to the rest of the world, which takes me to share the episode with people. Get people excited about what God is doing, and we also want to talk about what you guys want to hear. So and not tell you what you want to hear, but tell you.
We'd love to respond
with the Bible. Yeah, respond to what you want to hear.
Yeah, So comment away too. That helps with the algorithms, number one, so that more people can see us. But we want to hear from you. We love to hear when you're like, hey, could you guys talk about this? What do you think about that? Whatever it is, we love to interact with you and really, like I said, respond to what's going on in the world. Sometimes things are going to happen and we're going to want to talk about that. But, if you have a genuine thing that's going to help your faith, especially when we haven't done an episode about it or haven't done one in a while, love to do it. Love to talk about it, rehash it, maybe find some new answers, whatever it is. It could, and plus, you never know that a question that you're struggling with or something you're curious about can help someone else. Yeah. So just by asking it and giving us the opportunity to speak into it, you could actually not only help yourself, but you could help someone else too.
So, comment challenge this week, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. Comment challenge this week is who shared the gospel with you? And if it was more than one person, write their names in there. Tag them.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times we don't get to see that.
Yeah.
And the encouragement that you get from knowing that you impacted somebody is huge, and it could go a long way with revitalizing someone's walk and encouraging them. So absolutely drop their name. Who shared the gospel with you, who watered the seed, who helped bring you to know who Jesus is. Drop that in the comments on YouTube preferably, but on wherever you're commenting, please just drop their names in there and let the world know that there are people that are active and sharing the gospel with other people.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
We
love you guys so much, and God bless.